Check podcasts.
The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Kalen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. How are you, Sam?
I'm doing great, Kalen. How are you doing this
I'm
morning?
pretty good. No complaints. It's a sunny Wednesday.
I know. It feels like the third one in a row.
Yeah.
And, it's
awesome.
cold, though, in the morning. Eh?
It is a little chill.
It's still +1.
I know.
+1. My little plants are like
I see this
dying
person
out
on
there.
Instagram that does like bets on slots, like for every Instagram follower he has. It's hilarious because he's betting like 80,000, 10 cents for every follower, and he has like 800,000 followers. Anyway, he's in Calgary, so I always know the weather in Calgary based on his daily post. And I'm like, it was like snowing, and I'm like, that's Calgary for you.
Why would you live there when you could live here?
I know. It's crazy. And speaking of snow, it's not a good segue, but we have a guest today. Would you like to introduce our guest?
Oh, sure. It's Byron Fry, the snowiest of all bakers. You just come in covered in flour, and you just remind us of Santa Claus a little bit.
Yeah.
You got the beard.
Like he's in the bakery.
It was a great segue.
It was a good, okay, yeah. So, well, I'm a master segue guest.
Okay, so Byron Fry, owner of Fry's Bakery here in Victoria, been doing business for at least 12 years or so. Makes some of the best bread and pizzas and my favorite sausage rolls in town for sure.
Oh, yeah, amazing food.
And thanks for coming, Byron.
Thank you guys.
Welcome.
How are you? How's biz? How's everything been going?
Pretty good. It's been through kind of a bit of a rocky winter, I would say. I think we did well, but we did kind of some major kind of changes in our production that have been, it was sort of like starting the bakery all over again when building systems and stuff. And so we have been adjusting, we talked a little bit, rebuilt our oven at the beginning of 2023. So that was kind of a big thing. We've been doing a lot of reinvesting in equipment, and, I started everything with used garbage and that I could.
Did you build your first oven?
I did build my first oven. We built this one too.
Okay. For people who don't know, you're not just building. You're not making your bread in a convection oven, are you?
No. Well, we do actually have a convection oven and we do bake some bread in it, but the vast majority of our bread is baked in a wood fired oven.
I did not mean to throw you under that convection bus.
It's funny. Like we were exclusively wood fired until last summer. And so we did all of our croissants, all of our pastries, everything through the wood fired oven. We did all our cookies in that, which is a really challenging process to get it at the correct temperature, especially because the temperature is different every single day, depending on how much wood goes in. And
it's probably different temperature for different things you're cooking too, or baking. Right?
Exactly, yeah. And so it's really real hard to get consistency within that, especially when we had a pretty big production just based going through that oven, and it was also, I built it when I was 23 years old, and I didn't really know much what I was doing. I had the help of a mason who had built similar, built a lot of masonry heaters, which is a similar kind of construction, but he hadn't built an oven of that size before either. And so there was a few issues with it that we remedied last year, and now it's like humming along, and we only use it for the bread production, and we have a convection oven for doing all our pastries now. And so that really
must be easier to make your cookies in a convection oven, I would imagine.
We're selling a lot more of them suddenly.
Was it a capacity issue? Like part of you needed more?
It's our capacity was really it was really tough how we were doing it before, and it was based on how I got started, which was baking for farmers markets. And I'm so happy I did it that way. I'm so happy we still have a wood fired oven, allows us to do the pizza program that we do on the weekends, and I think the bread is phenomenal in it. But there's nothing wrong with a little bit of technology to help
smooth out the edges.
Absolutely.
And keep up the pace. How hard was it to get permitted for the wood fire component in this day and age of climate change? And
that wasn't that conversation with the city back then. I didn't ask them if
there was no issue.
I didn't ask recently if I could rebuild it. I just rebuilt it.
Good for you.
But the original build was a pain in the ass to get my building permit. They were real shitty about it, and I made a big fuss. And they eventually gave me my plans with a stamp on them that says we take no responsibility. And I was like, fine, I don't fucking mind.
No
Okay, yeah,
responsibility for
exactly.
what? For people complaining? Or because
What responsibility do they ever take anyway?
I don't
really?
know. It was a weird. I managed to make a bit of a fuss on social media at the time, which I don't know if I would do again. But at that time, I did.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
eventually, I got a call from this lady. I don't know if she still works for the city of Victoria, but she was like, she was calling from the building department and being like, oh, we got your response. I think I talked to one of the counselors at the time. I think Lisa Helps actually was a counselor, and I'd kind of complained to her.
Right.
And I got this message from the office, and I was like, this lady started telling me, well, it hasn't been that long. It hasn't been this. And I lost it.
Yeah.
I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I'm paying rent on this space. I'm
Yeah.
a kid. Like, I'm working my ass off every day to do this. And you're trying to tell me. And she kind of made this comment about like, oh, I really hope you get your bakery open, but you got to do this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, I lost it. And it turns out, and kind of basically told her what's what. And she had kind of mentioned this other bakery in Steveston where she used to work. So, there's a bakery in Steveston. And I know that guy just boarded his windows and built his oven anyways. He didn't,
Yeah.
and I told her that I can do that if you want. I'm trying to do the right
no
thing.
problem.
And she ended up being like the head of the department for the, some overseer.
Some
So-
overlord.
Yeah, and we ended up, I wasn't mean or anything, but I just really told her my peace of mind, and then I got my piece of paper the next day, and that no one in the office would look at me.
Yeah.
So, I don't
The
know.
squeaky wheel.
Well, I think when you were building, I was probably doing the Hudson. I was probably trying to get
Yeah,
permitted
that's-
for a coffee roastery.
It's funny
at the
because you
Hudson.
came up yesterday because we were talking about the Hudson.
Okay.
And I was telling Derek, who's my chef at the bakery, that I had actually had a signed lease for that back space right next to where you were. Because you and Ken Houston
Yeah,
were,
that's right.
We're
Yeah,
kind of like,
Ken,
yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be great.
What a bunch of losers we were for saying that.
It's called naive.
Oh,
Young
yeah,
and
naive, yeah.
hopeful. This is what we do in business. We're always hopeful.
Yeah, hopeful. That's what
Yeah.
it is.
And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah. And I remember sitting down with one of the realtors at the time, and I got this like an intention to lease or something that I still had some time to back out on, and I backed out, and then I guess it sounds like it wasn't that great for everyone. So
Not for everyone. I'm sure it worked out great for the Royal Bank.
Yeah.
they're probably still
they're
pretty
happy. They may be happy. I
they
think
might
everybody
be
else
happy.
is a little dissatisfied.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about that spot lately, eh?
Oh, yeah?
Well, I don't know. Why were you talking about it?
I have no idea. I think it just came up.
Okay. it just became totally vacant again.
Oh,
and,
wow.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of calls about putting something in there, and it won't happen.
in the
What?
public
In
market.
the Hudson, yeah.
Why would you ever entertain it after?
Well,
We're on a bit of a segue here.
yeah, a little bit. Well,
Yeah.
because people want good coffee down.
Oh,
downtown,
no, I get it.
guess,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
right?
people. I
People,
thought you were talking
people.
about,
No,
realtors or...
Townline is not approaching.
Yeah,
me.
Townline was not approaching you.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
but the permitting back then was like you could either force
Even as hard as it
like you
was,
did.
it sounds like it's easier than it is now to get
Yeah.
wood fire.
I would think so. Yeah. I don't know. I don't see there's any reason not to do it.
Yeah.
It's essentially, if you want to squawk about solar power, it's solar power. It's regenerative.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah, totally.
People always ask me like, what wood do you burn in your oven? And I always say old growth red cedar.
It's regenerative.
No, which is not true, but
not the old growth part, but
No, and we burn whatever. We actually burn the same thing that you would burn in a government park. We buy from the same supplier that the provincial parks buy
Right,
for their
yeah.
firewood, and that
okay.
guy drops
and it's
off
consistent
bin.
supply.
Consistent
Yeah.
supply. It's been hard. We had a really good supplier with the folks at they had Victoria Firewood, and they would
Yeah.
pack everything in a pallet and drop it off in really nice condensed space, and it worked well for us. All kiln dried, and so it burns when it's kiln dried wood. It burns super clean. It's
Yeah.
super efficient. We've now switched to this other supplier, which is also kiln dried, and shows up, in a big bin, the bin truck, and they drop it off, and it takes up more space for us. But
Yeah.
landlord's been good to allow us to do that, but it's as opposed to using, gobs of electricity
Yeah.
or natural gas,
Yeah.
it's the way to go, I think, for, unless there are more efficient wood-fired ovens. Like I think
Yeah.
what they put in at Wildfire, those Bassanitas are pretty efficient, but there's also, you're relying on something that's coming from Italy or from
Yeah,
outside the
and
world
it's
where-
very expensive. as
yeah,
well.
we built it ourselves, and
Yeah.
it was easier. We didn't actually have to rebuild our whole oven when we did it. We just actually repaired some of the issues that were with it,
Yeah.
and then kind of rebuilt the whole face of it with a new door system that made the oven much nicer to interact with and whatnot. And so, but it's, we hired a friend of mine who's a local guy to help us build it. He was a mason. I brought in another fellow from out east who's a really talented mason named Alex Chernov, and has built a lot of wood-fired ovens around the world, actually. And it was cool to actually see that. Alex was able to transfer knowledge to my friend Brendan, who who was helping us.
Kind of see how it was supposed to be done.
Yeah,
or how it's done
exactly.
around the world.
And I spent some time working with there too. Brendan and I were, it took us a month to rebuild it, and I finished my Christmas rush. We worked all the way up until New Year's Eve, and then I came back. Took one day off, came back, and just started.
Did you guys close during that period?
We closed for a month. Oh yeah, it was a huge
that's
it was a heartbreaking moment too, because we just destroyed the whole front of the oven, and it was a total construction site in this kind of throbbing heart. It was so cold too because it was January, and the only heat source in the building is the oven. And so it was and the dust that was coming off of it, And then once we got it all cleaned up, we had to lay new hearth tiles. That was the other thing, is the hearth had been pretty damaged over the years, and there's made to be replaceable, and so we dug it all out, and I got these 3-inch thick, 12-inch wide, but 24-inch wide tiles, and we had to crawl into the oven and lay them on our stomach and be in like a not like plank, but on holding it up, and then just slowly lower them in to get them all level. And I think we did all right. It looks pretty good.
Kind of like you if you're in a crematorium or something.
Yeah. It's pretty much the same thing.
You could maybe in here at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Those tiles, what kind of material are they?
They're fire brick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the whole oven's just standard fire bricks. We ordered them. I think they came from out east, it was a really, we saved the part of the oven that was still in good shape, which was the main vault and the sidewalls and stuff, and then rebuilt the hearth and the front of the oven. And
did you get more capacity after you did that?
A little bit more. It holds heat a lot better. And it's way more efficient. Way more efficient for wood usage. Near the end, we'd there's a whole kind of golden ratio of wood-fired ovens that goes back to Pompeii, and it's the height of the door has to be 33% or 66% the height of the dome.
Oh,
and that creates. That's what creates the efficiency.
The convection kind of component?
A convection part, but you want the gases of the wood, because the hottest part of burning wood isn't actually burning wood, it's burning the gas that is emitted by wood.
Oh,
if you go past and you see a smoky wood stove, not only is that bad for air quality, but it's a very poor design of wood heat.
Yeah, it's not burning.
So the design component is making it more efficient, but also being more environmentally friendly in that standpoint, right?
Yeah, if that's the
thing.
Focus, and I think it. I think it's always better to use what's on hand than what shipping.
100%.
From whatever. Using diesel to fuel electricity or whatever. I think. I've seen there are some really modern bakery ovens that are hyper efficient, that run on heat exchanger systems and thermal oil. And you can heat that with anything. You can heat it with diesel, you can heat it with natural gas, you can heat it with a wood fire if you needed to. But I was out in Toronto and talking to folks Blackbird Baking, who have these big thermal oil ovens, and I think it's something like all three ovens run on $20 a day.
Wow.
Yeah, huge. Wow. And they're massive ovens, and there's three of them producing thousands of loaves of bread around Toronto, and they're these really hyper efficient German ovens. But they were $750,000.
Yeah,
I guess you pay up front for that, huh?
It's like anything; you always pay up front. Yeah. So, what challenges did you have over the COVID period? Obviously, I mean, we've been done COVID a million times, but coming out of it, I guess. Were you able to kind of get back into your stride from pre-COVID?
Yeah, coming out has actually been the hardest part. We were banging busy through the whole thing. Yeah, and it was nonstop, foot to the floor. There wasn't a slow day for 2.5 years, and I was like, oh, this, for a while, I was like, this is great.
Yeah, this is the way it should be.
I would say that it was unexpected how busy we were going to be. I kind of was like, okay, are we going to close, or what's going on with this? And I think it just kind of. What's the there was it's a Hunter S. Thompson line or whatever. I think we were talking about in the bakery is like when the going gets weird, the weird GoPro.
Yeah.
and it felt like it was okay. This is great and it's working but coming out of it, the staffing challenges we had during it, the people we kind of had to hire during that time, just because there wasn't many people, or maybe not people I would have hired, or wanted to work with, or trying to keep up with the demand was just quite disruptive in a lot of ways. And then we lost all of our rhythms, so you didn't know when people were going to show up, when the kind of rhythm started coming back. When it's like, okay, are people going away for this weekend now, or are they all going to be in town on this holiday? And that's been really challenging, and kind of most of our hires through COVID have now moved on for various reasons, and we're getting a more stable team, and we're getting more consistent customer interactions and whatnot, and really focusing on like paring down our products into what really sells well and what really is producible well for us, and because I think we were so busy that whatever we made would just sell. Yeah. So if we're inefficient in making it, whatever. It was just like get it out, and as money's become tighter for people and people are less in this frenzy, I think there's more. We need to take more time to focus on making sure like consistency is always there and our quality is always there, and it's not about just producing as much as we can because there's constant people pissed off because they're not getting it. Like when we closed in 2023 to do the oven, we had a month without bread. We had like so many people
they were just losing their mind.
This guy come in and he was like, "This is the third time I've come down." He walked in the door and the doors were papered and shut. And I'm like covered head to toe in oven filth and like been working.
I imagine you had a sign there too that he would probably walk past.
And he walked in and he just started like kind of reaming me out. I was like, you know what? If you're not nice, you're not going to get bread.
Yeah, no bread for you.
So
I know your face.
So throughout COVID, who were your customers? Were they, because you're not right downtown? Where are you?
Yeah, we're in Vic West, so we're on Craigflower, across from Banfield Park there, and so I think a lot of neighborhood people, a lot of people walking to us. A lot of people weren't leaving town like they would before COVID. That would go away for a weekend. A lot of people weren't able to go to restaurants.
Less competition going around.
Exactly, like more dollars instead of going out for dinner. We're going into what can I bring home for dinner. And I think the butcher shops felt the same thing from what I understand, and so that was there. And then we did a lot like at the beginning of COVID when everyone was supposed to be kind of inside and whatnot. I drove around and delivered bread to old folks and whatnot who needed it, and did that for a couple months. And that was kind of fun. And we used to every I think Tuesday we put a table of bread out front just for free for people who had lost their jobs and whatnot and who needed to come by. And so we did those kind of things. And I think a certain amount of that probably garnered us some love, and that's maybe why we were busier when things went on. But also I think that there was just a general appetite for what we were doing, and that we've now seen. There's a few other businesses that opened up in town of that size that I think we hadn't seen that growth for a while. So I think COVID was like everyone saw how busy the bakeries were, and other folks went and opened up. And so, coming back into a landscape post-COVID where we're kind of getting more to the numbers that we were used to in the past, and some of the rhythms we were used to, has been interesting. Like not knowing, okay, we made a bunch today and no one showed up, or we didn't.
Yeah.
Like for us on the Thursday before Easter, it's like normally not a busy day for us. For the Friday or the Saturday isn't. This week we sold out. By like 10 in the morning. I'm like, oh, fuck,
man, if I'd known
Where's the
that.
patterns?
Yeah, and it's but that's a whole aspect we can figure that out over time. We're kind of getting used to that, but it's just kind of starting again with
to get back into the regular rhythm,
or just find out what
trying to figure what the new rhythm is.
And there's just so many new people too.
Yeah,
it's all new people in the city. It feels like the whole cast of characters changed.
Well, it's funny how people. Sorry to interrupt. No, it's funny how people. Like I've done this. In my business, I've analyzed sort of, okay, well, how much does it cost to acquire a customer? Once you have that person coming regularly, what does that generate? And I've read studies and seen studies that say the average person will be in the community for 5 years or something like that. So if you've got them, count on them for 5 years, and then they'll either move or transition to a different neighborhood, or new people come in. So you'll have to be kind of recreating yourself for the new people.
Yeah.
But the people that when you do have a customer, and I figured it out for Big Wheel, I estimated it being around 1,600 in the lifetime of the person being in the neighborhood for 5 to 7 years or whatever it is, the average person. So if you have a customer and to get a new customer, how much are you going to pay to get a new customer? Because they're only going to be here for that period of time, right? So recreating yourself for new customers, making yourself relevant to new people is as important as keeping your existing customers, or more important, but they're going to transition. I mean, there's always a segment of the population that stays for longer periods of time, but I think that's an interest, especially where you are, because, that neighborhood kind of shifts a bit, but it's walkable, which is good.
Yeah.
And I think, your reputation is like incredible. And you're just staying relevant too, because when did you bring pizza on?
We did that for it was 11 years. I did that in the first
You the
year.
whole time?
Yeah, well, we started the bakery in September of 2012, and then in April 2013, we started doing pizza.
Oh my God! So you've been doing pizza the whole time on the weekends?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I know.
And I gotta catch up with the news, man.
I know it's funny because it's like
It's like, oh, would you start doing this?
It's funny with some stuff is that like it's now just catching on. Like we started doing sourdough bread from the beginning, and we couldn't tell people it was sourdough because they'd be like, ew.
Yeah.
And now
now
everyone knows how to make it themselves.
and or they come in and they're it's like it's the newest health food and,
Yeah.
and they're all flowery about it. Like, do you guys have sourdough? I was like, yeah, everything we do.
Everything we do is sourdough. We've been
And we-
sourdough since the beginning.
Yeah.
And
Catch up.
And yeah, pizza, we watched the kind of pizza thing explode and it's like seeing things that we've been doing for years popping up on
New
and on other people's menus around the city, and even taking some of the names, it's like our chef there, Derek, came up with this name for a pizza called Verdura, and I was like, oh, that's a weird name, like I don't know that one, but he's got his French, roots and background. I was like, great, it's a name. And I now see that on certain menus. I was like, oh, now this is a word. And I don't know if it's from us or if we're all,
It was like polenta back in the day when we started doing polenta. Then everybody had polenta, and we're like, what the hell, man?
In Victoria, I'm going to make up some facts here for just for your benefit here, because we're talking about changing demographics a little bit. They say in Victoria it takes the average business 3 years to close, but it takes the average Victorian 5 years to try something new.
I bet you that's probably a pretty accurate fact.
I'm pretty sure it's accurate.
Let's go with the accurate.
It's as accurate as I get.
Yeah.
I was also having a conversation with a person today, actually, about those changing demographics. And she was saying that her business had brought in 2 influencers that were in their early 20s, like food influencers. And one made them go off, and the other one didn't do very much for them. But I was like, really? There's 20-year-old food influencers out there?
This is wacky, though, right? Like, this shouldn't really be in food at all.
Well, no. And how Instagrammable are you?
Well, the thing is, I actually started all of our marketing from the beginning, and when I started, it was all that was very new, and for whatever reason, and like I went to photography school. Actually, that's how I started first coming to your place with my dad.
Yeah, that's right.
But then I would go there all the time when I was going to photography school at Western Academy, and have like four espressos a day, and then wired up. And, but I kind of came of age with Facebook and Instagram going around, and I had the photography skills before everyone had really caught on.
Yeah.
And so it was hugely beneficial in my business in the early days. I had a Facebook business page probably before most people.
Yeah, you were doing cutting edge things at that time.
At that time, it was, they hadn't throttled it yet, right? Yeah. So like I'd have things blow up pretty big for what was going on at that time, right? And now I'm really sick of it. Like I'm so I'm sick of I got sick of that version of myself back then too, right? Sure. And I think, I stopped, like I used to write a newsletter every week. I used to post constantly and do all this stuff. And then it just became this sea of marketing. And I just got, I stepped off that probably more like 5 or 6 years ago, where I stopped trying to push and just kind of left we would still post photos occasionally, but it just didn't have the energy for me. And I try and interact with it now. And it's just, the whole system is so captured, right? Like it so belongs to, Facebook or Meta or whatever,
Yeah.
and it all just kind of flows back.
Yeah,
to
the
them.
algorithms and all that kind of stuff. You know, the amount of effort, like even I look at the influencers in general, the amount of effort that I know a couple influencers that do poker content, and the amount of work they do to put in that content. I mean, they're working 80 hours a week, right, to generate maybe a paycheck of, you know, that would cover 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
But there, I mean, it's all about building a brand and building all this stuff, and they get little extra stuff there. But they really, those, you know, Facebook and Instagram and those guys have really captured, you know, taking advantage of these individuals that are trying to get, and, you know, it's like anything. If you're a pro athlete, like, you know, 0.5% or whatever will become to make money. So there's people that are making really good money, but there's just a lot of people doing a lot of work.
But and I think in the food space, like I really have come to see, probably more recently than I have before, but you know, we've always sort of tried to use as much local ingredients as possible. Local source. I know that's big with your guys as well, and you know, I think it's like when we start kind of blowing up food for the virality of it and this thing, we break that connection. Like, I think what we're really doing is trying to connect people to the land. That's our job.
Yeah.
We're the ones who, you know, translate what the farmers are making into something that people eat and enjoy, but they also know.
Yeah.
And if we're not if we're trying to, you know, create this false sense of scarcity by going like, oh my God, there's only a few, or, oh, we sold out early, or oh, we did this.
Yeah.
You're actually kind of breaking that connection every time you do that, because it's all just for that marketing. It's not really
so short-sighted, and removes people from the connection of where the food comes from and how good it is, and also supporting it consistently.
Yeah. Like I watched this with you guys recently. You guys made a post about your chicken.
Oh God.
And I watched this and I was like, I was so fucking mad reading the comments about this gluten-free. I could have been screaming.
But you know, the best part of it, our sales are up on our chicken.
What happened? I missed it.
We did a gluten. Well, it was a bit of a self-own, because our intention, we didn't want to post it. So we had a miscommunication with our social media manager, and cause we just were going to deal with it in store and to say, hey, if you're, you know, it's no longer gluten free, and just do it on the one-off. And she just posted it to the world, and then every single person, and I guarantee you, 90% of the people that were commenting either had never been to a Big Wheel, or had been like 5 years ago, or don't even really support, you know, whatever, they're making their own gluten-free stuff at home or whatever. But it just went off. But it's a prime example of the opposite end of that. Is just like
they're not connected to their food.
They're not connected to their food. Exactly.
And you're saying, hey, look, this is what we can do to use this local supplier.
Yes.
It's a thing that should be like a clap on the back. Like, right. And
I think that was what our manager's intention was, and then it just like blows up, and you're just like, what we're trying, like, plus our bill time, like, we're just trying to run a business here and try to be as ethical as possible.
Yeah, like the amount of comments is like, I would rather gluten free over local, and I was like, you don't get to make that fucking choice.
Yeah,
like, that's awful.
Like if you have that issue, then just eat chicken.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't need to be breaded, or eat something else.
Yeah,
exactly. But like, these guys are doing a good thing here, and we need to all focus more on what we can get from our region, and not be shipping it from everywhere for a whole variety of reasons. But
now I remember when you started baking, and one of the things that I thought was so cool is how you were trying to source your flour, and you went deep into that. You went so deep, you bought a mill, didn't you? And you bought a whole other business.
Yeah, like I opened with a mill in the bakery.
Oh, you opened with
I had one in the bakery. No, it's okay, but that was something.
This is where we make up our own facts and stories and assumptions here.
It was, but it
just like your pizza thing. I'm like, what?
but no, that was really important to me when I got going, and being able to use some of the local grains or just the freshness of flour is a huge thing to the nutrition of it. Like if you mill a flour and you leave it for a month or more, or 2 months or 3 months, which is probably most bagged flour you're getting is, you know, maybe 6 months old.
Probably at least,
And where in the first 2 weeks it loses most of its life.
Oh wow,
because
interesting.
the oxygen mixes with the oils. Or whatever,
and the best is, you know, in the first week is to use it, and a lot of people do.
That's fascinating. I would
mill the same day, bake the same day, but it's a more inconsistent product. It, you know, it reacts differently. It's more volatile.
Yeah.
You know, we essentially were able to be so successful as a you know, or like European nations were, you know, able to be successful in colonialism a lot and settling places because of refining flour and roller milling it so that it became a transportable project. Because it was really hard to just set up. You had before you could kind of have an outpost somewhere. You could just send that flour, and that was a good food source that people could take with them. But it wasn't the same thing as it was before. Even to the point when they invented the roller mill, you saw the birth rate over the next 30 years drop in half in Europe.
What's the difference between like a burr mill? I guess is two plates
a stone mill
that turn and. The
roller mill. So roller mill is like kind of like your burrs on rollers, and they're steel, and they're peeling that grain. And then the way that they peel it, you can pop off all the bran and all the germ and just get the endosperm.
Oh, okay.
And like the vast, most of us still use a little bit of that flour. And it's like we use some of that flour in our croissants. It's really, really usable for a variety of things. We use it in some bread. And it's not bad. There's a lot of protein, a lot of good things in it, but it doesn't have the same life force as a freshly milled stone ground flour.
Okay.
And the reason the stone ground flour has all that, like whether you sift it or not, it still contains the germ, which is the vitamin E, which is all, that's actually a big thing for the fertility health of people, like vitamin E. And that's why they saw the birth rate go down, because they took that out of the food.
Interesting.
And that's why they had to augment the flour too, because they're, all your flour, it says like it's got this, and this, and all these vitamins, because the vitamins are normally in it, but they take them out with.
So they're adding them back
through processing. They just add,
but not they add them back in like powdered.
But not in the
chemical versions.
Yeah,
and it's not supported by the plant then that you're eating.
Exactly,
it's an addition. It's not part of it.
Exactly.
Same thing with milk.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We have the whole raw milk thing. I was been thinking about that a lot lately. We've been getting this great raw milk from a neighbor, and it's so beautiful and so fresh and so amazing. And
from a neighbor, do they have a cow in the backyard?
Yeah, they have a couple cows, and they're I can't say much about it because it's harder. We were talking earlier, but it's harder to get raw milk than it is to get fentanyl in the city. And
that's crazy.
And it's more illegal for sure.
Definitely more illegal. They'll put you away.
Well, that's regulation, is it not? Like, is it like dairy board stuff?
Yeah, it's dairy board
oversight
stuff, and it's been around. It's just like any regulation. Be real is like you can't have any regulation if there's money in politics.
Yeah.
Regulation doesn't work in any way. It doesn't protect people. It just protects big corporations.
Yeah.
And that's, sadly the truth across the board. But in food, it's all about making it so that the small producers can't compete against the big producers.
Yeah.
And right now, it seems like pretty good on the island that people can have backyard cows and settle their neighbors. And they're not, VHA doesn't seem to be,
they're not policing it.
Not too much,
level.
unless someone complains, and then there's the things going. But like, personally, if I had the space for a cow, I would love to be part of that fight. I'd love to be right there, and be like, "Fuck you, I'm selling this."
Purposely.
Exactly. I'd put it out on the farm stand and be like, sit there with a shotgun and just be like, wait for it.
Over my dead body, you taking my cow.
Yeah, making the best cheese for your pizza ever, probably, right?
Yeah, it would be so lovely to do that. And we've been getting, like, we use Natural Pastures cheese. We get it shipped down every week or two from Natural Pastures for our pizza service, so we get it fresh. We used to get it through Lecker, and I'll just say fuck Lecker because I really don't like them, and they've
oh my god,
they've banned me twice now.
Oh
they won't sell them to me anymore.
Now?
Yeah, but anyways, apparently I got a bad attitude. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I got a bad attitude too.
I think we can all tell Lecker stories.
Oh
After
yeah. But we've stopped ordering from them because it was, for one, they won't actually sell to me anymore, but for two, because
I love it.
It was old by the time we get it, and and for us, we would love to make it day of, but if we were maybe a pizza shop, we were doing it all the time, it would make sense. But and I've been trying to teach myself how to make it from the raw milk, at least, and one day. But we get it directly from Natural Pastures, and it's lovely to have a relationship with just them, not circumvent. And it gets made on Tuesday. They put it on a truck on Wednesday, and it's at the bakery that night, and we have it for that week. And so it's as fresh as we can get it, and so that's pretty. And there are people doing things in that scale, but on a smaller scale, and not as as big as some of these corporations. But we don't have the backyard producers, and that would be so cool. Because some of our best vegetables and stuff come from backyard producers.
100%. Yeah.
Anyways, that's my cheese rant.
So is there a way out of that, you think? Do you think the future is bright for that? Do you think big corporations are just going to keep their thumbs on top of our heads? And
I think the thumb's going to stay there until we say, hey, get the fuck off, and
until we do it anyway?
Yeah.
Well, I think food security, like especially, tie in. I hate to always tie in climate change or whatever, but there's never been a better time to buy local, figure out what the food sourcing is locally, make sure that we know how to produce our own food. There's real risk in there's transportation risk, but there's also environmental risk in just in the actual farming process and what the earth's going to be like and how much sun and rain and all that kind of stuff. So we got to be thinking of ourselves because we may not be able to get products from other parts of the world.
And there's so many reasons to do it, right? Like there's
and to support the ecosystem and the economy.
Yeah,
right?
and we are the ecosystem,
Yeah,
right? Like we're a part
yeah.
of it, and the more that we keep thinking of ourselves as separate from it, the more we'll keep paving it.
Well,
like,
this is exactly what you talked about,
like that
right?
idea,
Like when you talk about that disconnection with your food.
Yeah.
And when you're just doing this like spot point in time celebration of this one ingredient where you can actually buy it all year round. But the emphasis on that point, and then the sales dry up, and then they're like, "Oh, well, let me not make that anymore." When you could actually create a really good economy, and there's probably some stuff that grows on Southern Vancouver Island better than other parts of the world.
We have amazing growing climate. That's my big thing. Every time I go and visit a food city somewhere else in the world, I'm like, the produce sucks.
Yeah,
because we're so used to I'm so used to growing up here and eating stuff fresh from the garden.
Yeah,
like, our local farmers. Like I live just down the road from Sea Bluff Farm, and to eat their carrots, it's like you never want to eat another carrot from anywhere. Like,
it's just like
the pinnacle of carrot,
yeah.
especially in the winter when they've just gotten sweet. It's like or the strawberries from there, and like I'm very Sam and I both live in Metchosin, very proudly from Metchosin, and I see this like kind of growth of the cancerous growth of the neighborhoods coming around it. And it's just like it's pulsating at the door right now, and it's like fuck.
Stay away.
And we have a little bit of farmland there that actually grows. It's one of the most beautiful climates you could ever think of for growing certain kinds of food, and the sea air coming on things, the lamb that's growing there, the strawberries that we grow there. Like I've never had them better anywhere, and maybe I'm just being
no,
a
but
little
you're
bit
absolutely
patriotic,
right.
But it's a beautiful thing. And then it could, I've seen Happy Valley Road in my lifetime, when I don't know if you guys drive down that at all, but when I was 16, 17, I remember I went on my first, I got in my car, I went on my first road trip, came back, and it was the first time I saw them, they'd clear cut a whole section of it. Yeah. And then it's just gone now. And those were all farms.
It's all houses.
Those were all farms. And it was a lot of that's in the ALR. A lot of it got taken out. Some of it's still in. And it's just and this is good farmland, but you look at the Lower Mainland, that was the top 1% farmland in the world.
Yeah.
Abbotsford had the 1%, you could put your arm up to your shoulder in the top zone.
That whole Fraser Valley was just amazing.
And then you look at down in Washington State, which in the bread community is a big place for us. There's the bread lab at Mount Vernon University that have been doing a lot of wheat breeding and breeding wheat specifically for our environment. And so folks out in Saanich, I don't know if you've seen the Field 5 farm, sorry. The brewery, they have a little brewing malt kind of setup out there.
Okay.
The Mike Donnell, who grows their grain, he was part of was coming down to the bread lab, baking conferences and stuff we're doing down there. And it's kind of blown up across the food world now. And a lot of these chefs are trying to bake with these grains. This guy, Stephen Jones, has a plant breeding lab there and done some really cool things. And if you look at that area, it's just the Lower Mainland extended, right? But they actually farm it.
Yeah, they're actually using it.
And they crop rotate it as a community.
Don't talk about crop rotation.
It's so cool. And they do we could have that right here, but no, it's just everyone wants to live on top of the most beautiful land, and they want to live as disconnected from it as possible.
Well, you see all these intersects with all the issues we've got and the urban sprawl and lack of density in core areas. And it's just it affects every aspect, And when it comes to the agriculture and the housing issues and the climate issues and all that stuff, and it just I don't know who we have to slap or who we have to yell at to try to undo what we've done, because even in you talk about where you are is the Langford sprawl that's just now going all the way, and you're like, why? Transportation sucks. You can't get workers anywhere where the work is, right? Because they have to literally commute 15, 20 minutes to get to their job, or half hour, 45 minutes or whatever. And then it's taking up ALR, and it's so frustrating.
Is there enough land in Metchosin to grow enough wheat to provide for enough bakeries in Victoria? Do you think?
I think, I know Tom Henry and John Buchanan, they grow quite a bit of wheat out there, and I think there's quite a bit grown in Saanich as well. I bet you between the two of them, there's probably more than enough. Like I saw them harvesting. There was a field of barley in Machosen, but it wasn't a big field. It was a beautiful spot, and overlooking the ocean. And they had, when they'd harvested it, they had about 5 big tote bags, and if we had that in our wheat, we probably personally at my bakery go through maybe 10 of those. So that field would probably feed our community for a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like it's hard to say though, because like my portion of what I'm supplying, and you might know this within like yourself relation to what you're able to supply coffee compared to say Starbucks, like I can barely touch the grocery stores. Like the grocery stores are selling the vast majority of the bread.
Yeah.
And even like Portofino, which probably has a pretty big bite out of the market on the island, they're probably not even half of it, right? Like a lot of people are buying just grocery store bread, and so I'm such a small amount, making a couple hundred loaves a day.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I kind of bump up against sometimes, where I'm like, okay, I love making bread on the scale. I love making it specifically for people. I don't want my bread to be wrapped in plastic and shoved on a shelf. I don't want to get up in the morning to do that for someone. I want to hand it to you as a lovely fresh product. But
it becomes more than a commodity. Like obviously, grains and wheat and is somewhat of a commodity, but when the craftsmanship that goes into the bread you're making, it's and again, it's back to that connection to the food, right?
Yeah, like I remember I was walking by that barley field last summer, and it really stuck out to me. It's just like the smells of that field at harvest, and really trying to kind of like imprint that, and then kind of see that in the product as I'm making it. And I'm like on this kind of wacky solar kick right now. I love this new term. I don't know if you've heard of it, called solar punk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it's like it's the kind of agrarian answer to steampunk and cyberpunk, but it's just like the world can be beautiful and farmy and great.
Yeah.
And I heard about it recently. I'm like, oh, this is awesome, because, like I feel like everything kind of, whether you get called a hippie or you get called this or that, it's like everyone's got an idea of it, and I love that no one knows what solar punk is, so you can like redefine it. It can be whatever
You're looking at solar punk, right?
And I was telling my partner it, and she was like, "No, can we be solar granola?"
Solar granola.
Solar granola works too.
Yeah, and so we've been focusing a lot on the garden recently, and I one of the things that really gets me going in food is thinking that like what we're doing is unlocking that solar energy from that plant.
Yeah.
Right? That plant sits out in the field growing and absorbing all of this solar energy, and then it releases itself to us in food, and that's it seems maybe it's woo-woo, but it's really what's actually happening, right?
That's how our cells operate, is through energy, and where do we get it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We get it from the sun, and we get it from our food, which comes from the sun. And
it's such a good framing though too, because it's really easy to understand that.
Yeah.
Right. For me, like I'm like, oh, what a good marketing angle.
Yeah.
Right.
And I do see this. Like I think these realizations for me probably come out of like some more regular psychedelic use lately, but like when you open an oven and it's just like these loaves come out golden and glowing, and it's like, that's the fucking energy of the sun in there.
Yeah, right.
Like,
solar.
Holy shit!
You just made a
Solar
little sun
power.
inside that oven.
And it's a beautiful thing, right? Like, and I think we do that. I think most chefs don't realize that they're actually like artists with light. They're displaying light on a plate for us to enjoy and eat. And I think within the whole food culture, the more purity we can take with that approach, the more that we're passing on that nutrition to people and the connection. So you can get all the scientific side of it. Like I think there is, there's some research around like the reasons for eating local food is eating within your latitude is actually a huge thing, because that food is telling you what season you're in, and telling your body what to be doing. Just like being exposed to the sun throughout the day, your body, your circadian rhythms, especially where we don't have consistent sunshine, right? We have to constantly be reacting to, changes in our environment and getting used to the, seasonal affective disorder. I know once I hit like October, my energy just goes, whoa.
Yeah, you're just done.
And I'm just starting to feel good now.
Exactly.
Right?
And
sun's out, and it's just like, oh.
And I think that's actually why people in the city are sometimes antisocial is that they just start feeling nice to each other by September.
Yeah, they're getting ready to be doing again.
And they're like, fuck it, I don't want to see you again.
Done.
Yeah.
And so, but I do think we can live more seasonally within that. And I actually find in the bakeries, it's one of the weird places where people agree to be seasonal. Like they'll eat only hot cross buns around Easter.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's nothing about a hot cross bun that's seasonal. It's not growing that time of year. You know, it's not popping up in the garden. It's just we eat hot cross buns now, and
even culturally, it's a couple months out.
Yeah. Exactly. It doesn't make any sense, right? And they'll start it in January. You're like, what the fuck are you doing? Actually, I think I've walked into, over the years I've been on this train where I walk into like a grocery store or something, and you see that they're starting hot cross buns or something really, really early. And I'm like, because I don't want to get ready for that time of year until but now, I've decided, okay, this year we started in February, and I was like, oh, that was a good idea.
Yeah, you're like literally like, hey.
You kind of get ahead of yourself. I've always been awful at that. And then this year it's like, oh, we should do something for Valentine's Day on the 13th.
I got and shared this with my staff this year, actually, because it was like the week before. But I was like, hey, you guys got any idea for Valentine's Day? And we pulled off some great stuff, but it was like, can we plan that a little earlier?
Can we
start in January next time?
Well, this is the whole thing in business too. It's like hard to, like, a lot of the times your best ideas come at the last minute, and then you're like, man, it would have been so much better if I had thought about this a month or two ago, right? Or consulted my team or the people that need to do the work, and and then I'm like, okay, next year. And then next year comes around, and it's the same thing. Last minute, I'm like, oh, we did that last year. Oh, yeah. Okay, we're too late.
You got marking on your calendar for a month.
Yeah, but I guess, I don't know. Does that take the spontaneity out of the business, or, that whole messy attitude that I think entrepreneurs have?
I did that once. I thought, I got to remember my wife's birthday, right?
Oh, geez.
Okay. It's in April. So I set my alarm because I finally got an iPhone.
This is April.
I've done it. I've done it. But when I first got my a smartphone, which I was a late adopter for that, it had this calendar. And so I would write it in. I'm like, oh, and it gives you a month, or you can set up for in advance. Yeah. So I set it so that it would remind me a month in advance so that I could have time to plan my wife's birthday. And like any entrepreneur, I saw it on my calendar in March and oh, I missed her birthday. 2 years in a row.
You're literally panicked
all day long, calling moms and calling friends, going, what am I going to do?
And she's literally like, it's
and you're
not my birthday.
I saw them. Anyway, sorry, sidebar.
When you get into, like, we just touched a little bit on the entrepreneurial angle of it. Like, what is the origin story of how you were interested in baking, in all the technical stuff that you've become so good at? Like, where did that start? Was it family history? Was it?
Yeah, I grew up in a family that ran a small business. My dad was a contractor and did concrete work. And so I kind of, and my dad, bit of a natural entrepreneur in that way. He grew up really poor and kind of built his way up into a good thing by being having the gift of the gab. And I think I probably absorbed a little bit of that. But my mom she grew up in a bakery. And so my Opa learned to bake in Holland and immigrated in the 60s. And then they ran bakeries in Victoria for a number of years. I think they had one by the 6 Mile pub there, where actually this is a cool story. There's a whole little strip there where it's, just across from the 6 Mile.
Yeah, I know it's.
And back in there was a bakery, a fishmonger, a greengrocer, and a butcher. All in one little spot, perfect.
Yeah,
Victoria Public Market.
You wish.
Yeah, you wish. Exactly.
We all would have done a little better had that actually happened. But no, this was back then, and it worked. It was individual businesses in there, and they all copacetic, and you didn't need a freaking grocery store because everyone, you were served. But anyways, and they had bakeries on 4th Street and then up in Comox and whatnot. And he did quite well, opening and shutting bakeries. And I think this is why Lecker doesn't like me, actually, because when I met Dick, who owns sorry, the Dick who runs Lecker.
It's not runs Richard? It or owns
it? He told me that the worst business decision his dad ever made was buying my Opus Bakery.
What? Yeah. Really? Oh, that's petty.
My
how awful.
My Opa, I guess, kind of scammed him into I guess buying this shop, and then it didn't
overpaying. Good. I don't know. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Oh,
feel a
man.
little better.
But anywho, my mom grew up in those bakeries, and I grew up with kind of her being my connection to food, and my Opa was around, but he didn't have bakeries when I was kind of more alive, and he died when I was 16, and then I kind of.
You knew a bit of the history.
I had that history and that connection, and then I got into baking kind of because I didn't want to do my other job, which was being a photographer, and I just was photographing weddings, and I found that quite horrible.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really my intention. I somehow found myself there doing it, and so I started baking bread as a hobby, and I started making this bread that I couldn't really find at a lot of bakeries, and I at that time there was Wildfire and Philippi I think was just opening, and I think I applied to work with both of them, and they both turned me down. And now I'm actually the mill that we started. I actually started with Erica. And she's lovely and whatnot. But back in the day, I had no experience, and I couldn't get a job at a bakery. Eventually, Alberto from the Italian bakery hired me, and he's still a great friend. I love the man, and so I worked for him for 6 months or so, and then I kind of bounced off on a motorcycle trip. And on that motorcycle trip, I kind of was like looking at bakeries, and I met this guy in North Carolina who was had a little bakery in his backyard. And
It's a hell of a motorcycle trip.
Oh yeah, I went from here to Montreal and all around Northern Ontario and Quebec and down North Carolina and back. It was gone for 3 months almost, and it was great. But I came back kind of meeting someone on that trip, one person specifically, this guy Richard Miskovich, who kind of made me.
And he had a backyard.
He had a backyard oven. He was like,
brick oven
just
again?
go build an oven, teach yourself how to make bread. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
I think that's how Cliff started.
That's how Cliff
too.
started too, and there was a whole wave at that time that is essentially like most people now in the blow up of social media baking don't realize how linked they are to those people.
Totally.
Like they're all very linked to that. Basically, there was one guy, Alan Scott, this Australian dude, who was teaching people how to build ovens in outside of San Francisco, and then there was a baking institute in San Francisco that was giving people like a 2-week course, and people were doing that and then going kind of around the states, starting these little pockets of these kind of organic sourdough bakeries, and now there's technologies advanced. They have these little kind of home-sized brick ovens that they're just plug into your dryer.
Yeah,
people
kind
can
of like those quick bake ovens you saw like your sister might have.
Yeah. Well, they
like light bulb heating it up.
Well, so they a lot of people have these. They're called like Rofcos. There's a bunch of different manufacturers of them now. And so if you want to get started with a small business, you could actually run a decent little business out of one of these ovens for $10,000. You don't have to like become this alchemist who can build their own wood-fired oven and learn all these other skills, that's I think allowed to the proliferation. But it all kind of comes back, and Cliff was very big in like inspiring a lot of people who I was also inspired by as well. And like his mill design that he built for the one at Philippi was worked on by a few other people and found its way to this fellow in Vermont, who's the guy who actually built my mill. And this guy in Vermont now is one of the biggest producers of mills in around the world. He's got new American stone mills. They're huge. And so if you're opening a new bakery and you want to do this kind of thing, you want to be you have one of his mills now.
Yeah.
We have the second one he ever built.
No. That's amazing.
But it's
story.
The original plant drawings, I guess, that he got plans from Cliff that he then
Cliff from Philippi.
Yeah.
For people that don't know.
And so there's lots of there's
what a connection.
There's so many.
That's
all
such an
connected within
incredible
there.
connection.
And then I kind of was getting into bread while that was already kind of happening in Victoria, and then I built this wood-fired oven at my parents' house on a trailer. And started baking, and then somewhere in there, my dad was like, "Oh, like I think my side of the family has some baking history too." And he pulls out this paperwork that this Fry's red wheat bread, which is our logo that we use now, and that was actually a bakery in Victoria in the 1920s.
Was it right across the street?
It was
from where
right
you are
across the
now?
street where we are now. Yeah.
Jesus.
And so that's
That's unreal.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense to me though, like as I get into the connections with the landscape and the land, and it's like these things echo on, right? Like if there's bread in a corner, people fucking figure it out.
Like it's in your
and
DNA,
and it's in the DNA, and it's in the memory of that place too, right? And I think there was, I got a message from Martin Barnett, who he was the baking instructor at VIU for a long time, and he started Rising Star Bakery. And Rising Star started in the Spiral Cafe.
Really?
Wow!
Just right next door to where you are now.
Yeah, and so and I posted a video of us making we're making solar granola, we're calling it. and he was
I love it.
and he found or he sent me a message saying this is 45 years of granola being made on that street, you know, like, and those things echo on.
Yeah,
those, right?
totally.
And so, yeah, I found that history with my dad. So my dad wasn't a baker, you know, didn't really have much to do with it, but apparently his dad probably was.
Yeah.
They might have had a bakery in Alberta at some point, and then there might have been another person in my family who had a bakery even earlier than the Rising Star in actually the space that I'm in or in that building somewhere. Not much information there. And then the original Fry's red wheat bread was across the street where the Chicken on the Run is.
Yeah.
There was another building there. And I have actually a photograph of when they demolished it. They found the wood-fired oven in there. And so that's
amazing.
It'd be cool to have a brick from that.
Yeah, I know. I wish. I think they destroyed it in the 60s. I think.
Yeah.
It's all gone now.
It's not in the Chicken on the Run somewhere.
Now, you mentioned like you had a Fry's like token?
Yeah, so I have like my family kind of apparently we're possibly related to the Fry's chocolate empire.
Through the Dutch connection?
No, through the Fry's.
Through your dad.
Through my dad's side in Bristol. That's where they started, and that's where our family immigrated from. And so kind of makes sense. I can't really find the direct link to that, but apparently the Fry's chocolate group and the Fry's in general in England were Quakers.
Oh, okay.
So they actually were trying to kind of sell people chocolate so to get them to stop drinking. So
didn't work.
No.
Just invented chocolate porter.
But they got a good business.
Chocolate porter. There you go. But I think actually Cadbury. They were also Quakers. All the major chocolate people were Quakers apparently in England.
Oh, amazing.
And supposedly the Fry's were the first ones to make a chocolate bar for production. So
wow.
Wow.
I think they were also
have me to thank.
the first ones to use the Dutch cocoa method too, maybe, weren't they?
Oh, maybe I don't know that much about the Dutch cocoa method, but
They make it alkaline so it goes powdery and doesn't stick to itself,
okay.
right? And
cool.
so they do it somehow. I thought that was started by Fry's as well.
It's possible. Yeah, they did sell like a Dutch cocoa, but it is an English company as far as I know.
Okay.
And so, anyways, that kind of part of the family came over with a fellow named Charles Fry, who and I think another group or another relative there, and they built a bakery in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, in the 1890s.
Wow.
And that one blows my mind because if you think about I think of the effort that it took me to build a bakery in Victoria, to build a wood-fired oven, how I had to go out and source the bricks and do this, and like to do that in like Moose Jaw in the 1890s, like you were
crazy.
Yeah, it was an insane fucking thing to do, right?
You're making your own bricks.
Yeah, exactly.
You're doing everything, right?
You're building the building for it because there's no buildings there.
Yeah.
You're doing.
That's starting from scratch.
You're probably building your mill, or you got someone who's milling some stuff, but like it's pretty scratch baking, as it's pretty old school, and I think that's actually something that I find really exciting in the food world, and I think one of my reasons of connecting with local food and stuff is that I really enjoy kind of local resiliency, and I think of things maybe not necessarily just in their marketing or their capitalistic sense but like in the resiliency of us as a community, and I think those things can exist simultaneously. But I have some lovely older people in my life who don't really, They do some things to, they might buy a piece of equipment for their property, but it's not really for them. It's to actually, now we can all do this. And they're very sharing with that. And I think that about like the flour mill we started in the Chosen, Erica and I, it's like, it's not really a business. Like we don't make a ton of money there. Yeah. And actually I've kind of given her the whole business now. I go in and I take care of the mill, but I have a secure source of flour. And the flour is what I need for my business to run, and a lot of other people now have that secure source of flour, and we're milling grains from on the island, and
mate, that's so
a lovely thing. But it's not going to like fill anyone's pockets. But there's not a reason not to do it.
Totally.
And I think as we like work on those local food systems, whether it's raw milk or this or that, it's not necessarily about how we can reap the most money from it, because there probably isn't money in it, right? Like
not real
money. And most ways that most of the things that we make money through food are either they're like in spaces where the margins are going to be good anyways, or it's like we're actually fooling people, like most
totally.
If you really want to think of food as medicine, then then you got to get rid of that aspect that's like, oh, you need this, right? You need this,
Yeah.
you need this, you need that to get, because you create that in people. It's like, no, people just need to fucking eat. They're
Yeah.
going to come to us anyways.
Yeah.
It's got to be good things for them that
Yeah.
they can deal with.
Get
And
some
so,
sustenance out of it.
yeah, and I think that's maybe part of growing up on the island. You know, like we're pretty remote here, right? Like
Yeah.
if we get in a bad situation, we've got to be able to take care of each other, and I think there's good things with that, right? There's a lot of good community that's built within that way, and I think yeah, it goes back to that conversation with like our job should be connecting people to the land,
Yeah.
and that's why I think. I was so pissed off when I saw what happened with your guys'
Yeah. Yeah.
the chicken thing, because I know that, you know, the work that the folks that you're in business
Yeah.
with, the Zambries and whatnot,
Yeah.
they're so big on building that local resiliency
Yeah.
and the farmers. And that is falling on deaf ears now. The new people moving
Yeah,
around, they
they're
don't
just-
know that.
yeah,
they don't
they're-
know what's been done. You know, they used to have the Island Chefs Collaborative, which did
Yes,
so
I
much.
know.
And I started, you know, baking, and that group was already happening. I was like, so grateful to be welcome into it. And then
Yeah.
it just
Disappeared.
gone, you know,
like
and-
it's. That's why I think, you know, as much as some of it is harder, like what you're doing and what Sam does and what we do, even, you know, it's a bit thankless. Like it's not necessarily. It's about the passion of it, but it's staying true to, you know, what's going to get us back to where we should be, which is the connection to the land. Remembering that food and dining and drinking is about communal, you know, conversation and family building and friend building and relationship building, and so connected to the land it's important. And we've got a ton of great farmers that aren't necessarily great business people, and so those not everybody has that perfect balance of business and sense, and anybody with sense wouldn't go into farming, I don't think. But you know, I think it's incumbent on us who are making food to try to really support the ones that are doing it, because that's going to be a dying art.
But maybe actually the ones who have sense are the ones in farming. It's just we don't have a system
Yes.
that rewards it yet.
Well, yes,
They-
and that's
they
it.
are the
They're-
smart ones,
They are the smart
really.
ones, and the life that they're enjoying from it. And you know, when it becomes just about the monetary part of it, like life is so much more than making money, like so much more, and it should be.
And,
Like the priority of the joy that you get out of what you do and what we do is lost on people, where we need to be putting it forward and saying, hey, like we're doing this for this reason.
Yeah.
You should be supporting it.
Well, maybe there will be a new system in place that allows people to do the right thing
yeah.
for not a monetary reward, just because it's the right.
Well,
thing.
people talk like I'll just a quick story. Our foundation helps fed urban agriculture,
Yeah.
which basically is designed to try to, you know, create urban agriculture.
Yeah.
So we can do farming locally, but sport farming and all that stuff. And we're looking to purchase topsoil, which is that urban garden right downtown,
Yeah.
Off Bay Street.
Okay.
And we went to the province, and we were like, okay, you know, you've got funding. This is a great, you know, social enterprise that we're doing. There's business people behind it, but it's not for business, for profit, idea of profit. And that's a key point, because the woman who I've known, she used to work for the city of Victoria. She's great, and you know, she's wonderful. But she says, well, there'd be money if this was a for-profit business. And I'm like, well, you're valuing profit wrong. Is what exactly what I said to her.
yeah.
This is profit.
Yeah.
Like, how is not creating food sustainability in a way that you can actually get food to people that need it,
Yeah.
for an affordable price, not profit?
It's just
Like, you're
creating the
viewing it
value.
wrong. Like,
Yeah.
because nobody would do this for profit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is where the disconnect. Like, if you're just focused on giving money to people that are doing it as a business,
Yeah.
you're basically just encouraging them to go out of business. Like, a social enterprise is the exact formula that will work for this.
Yeah.
You
And-
may as well sign that $3 million bonus check to the CEO of Sobeys.
Yeah, well, this is
Right?
it.
That's what
Like,
it's-
it just is lost.
And I think that's a lot of the answer, is that like the grocery stores have a stranglehold on us and our relation to food, right?
Yeah.
And I'm, you know, I've been reading a lot of Wendell Berry lately, and I think I got this from him, but there is no culture but agriculture, right? Like
Yeah,
it's the only culture.
yeah.
It's the only thing we have.
Yeah.
And
What's original culture too?
exactly. And everything else is just surviving in some vacuum that will eventually fail because you can't, everything else is a culture, an agriculture maybe from somewhere else that we brought here in some little form of like, here's a snack now. Or, whether it's a hot cross bun or a samosa or whatever, it's still agriculture somewhere, right? Yeah. And, I think kind of coming into this idea of like, if we want to take more care of the land, the answer is just getting more people on it.
Yeah.
And if you can get more people on it, whether you make it profitable for them to be on there or you just support them in getting out there. Like I know so many people who would probably love to garden or be involved in projects like that who just, they're stuck in a fucking condo.
Yeah.
Or they're stuck with a tiny little backyard or something like that. And it's just like, those are the people that need, and I think that's, we were talking about happened with COVID. I think one of the things that happened with COVID is people got really, like there was maybe a movement of people out of the cities, but in the cities, people got really scared of getting their hands in things, Yeah. So I don't know if you know the comedian Dave Attell.
Yeah.
He had a great joke on his last special about being in a Subway and someone's making a sandwich like, take your gloves off, raw dog me a sandwich.
Raw dog me a sandwich.
I thought I fucking died when I saw that. but people don't want hands in their
amazing.
food.
I know.
right?
This is where
Or soil on their things, like we take it as such a compliment. Someone every once in a while, someone will bring back it hasn't happened for a while, I think, but we used to
raw dog me a sandwich.
Yeah, we used to put lots of fresh salad on pizza, and people come back and be like, "Oh, there was a bug on this," and I was like, "Well, cool. Like it means we got it from a farm. It's still alive. You know, like that's a good thing."
Oh my god, that's hilarious! Raw dog me a sandwich. Well, it's funny you said that because we've got a certain team in our organization that just insists on wearing gloves, but they'll go from one station to the next station, and I'm like, what is happening here? Like, you're not washing your hand. Like you're actually contaminating things. Like, why are we doing it this way? Like, don't stop.
And I feel like that's
raw dog me a burger, man. Right?
Raw dog me your station.
Yeah,
your entire station. Then wash your hands.
But like that was the one thing that I saw with COVID is people became so much more afraid of like what's gonna get me sick, what's gonna do this, and it's like it's not the soil.
No,
it's not the ground. It's
plus,
not.
It's about building your immune system too.
Yeah,
all like,
involved in it.
My wife works in the hospital, and her immune, she's never sick, right? And then I'm like kind of sick periodically, and she's like, well, and I'm like, build your immune system. Like we got to get back to just nature and what matters. Like all this other BS is just circumstantial. Like the COVID thing, obviously circumstantial. It was a pathogen or virus or whatever the hell it was that came on, and we've now made it through that. But why are we afraid? Yeah. Let's get our hands dirty.
It's because we were
wash
told
our
to be
hands.
afraid.
No gloves, man. Raw dog stuff.
Well, I remember like one of my when I was working at the Italian bakery, I came out to help on the front end one morning and I was passing someone a loaf of bread, and she's like, "Can you get me one with a pair of gloves?" I was like, do you know how many times I've touched this? Like I've touched it every step of its way. I've given it so much love through these hands, like it's so important, that, and that's the transference of energy from one person to the next that you don't get wrapped in plastic. You know?
What was that whole theory of like grounding, like touching the ground and touching the soil, and forget about the kind of like wing nutty.
No, man, I get out every morning. I get my feet in the ground. I look at the sun and I just go like, here I am.
Be a part of nature.
Yeah.
Like I started ocean dipping. Yeah. And I'm like, the value of it is being connected to the earth.
Yeah.
And there's something kind of spiritual about it. Sure. And I'm not doing it for the purpose of grounding, but I really appreciate how I feel after I'm walking out of the ocean, and I'm just like, I feel like I've been in touch with
you got all that water and salt. They're all great conductors of electricity and stuff. You're doing it. You're grounding yourself.
I took a month or 2 months a couple summers ago, kind of off from the bakery. I was on call still, but I was working on a project out in Beecher Bay. I had some friends out there who were so gracious to let me work on my boat out there. And I was going every morning to the ocean, and the boat was, on the dock and working on it every day and just trying to figure things out and learned about woodworking and all this stuff. And I had never felt better. People were constantly looking at me like, "What are you doing? Like, you look amazing," and all this. And it was like, I was going down there getting that like sun in my eyes every morning, and there's a whole amount of research around this is why that's good. But I didn't even know any of this then. I was just
You're just doing it and seeing the benefit.
And when I stopped, I like fell off a cliff and I was like, where did that energy go?
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
oh, because I'm not doing this thing anymore.
Yeah.
And, I'm drinking the water that's on that land from the spring, and I'm, I was like, oh, because we are fucking connected to the ground, and if we're not doing that, we're missing something.
Yeah.
And that's why you have all these people who are kind of wandering around kind of in this
Aimlessly.
Well, they're eating fake food, drinking fake water,
Staying
breathing
in their
fake
condo,
air,
watching their screen, and living their life through
getting
whatever.
fake light, getting fake
and
everything,
and they're
right?
fucking nuts.
Yeah, and they are, and
Well,
they're
you're certainly
afraid.
crazy.
They're afraid.
Yeah.
And they're nuts. And so, I don't know. It sounds like you're on the right path of keeping it real for sure.
Maybe I'm going nuts. I don't know.
No, you'll go nuts fighting against it, because I think there is a battle going on, and I don't think it's like a metaphorical battle or some big good versus evil thing, but it's just that connection to food and getting back to the basics. Like we just, humans throughout history are like, if you transport us right now to like the 1600s, we're going to be the same people.
No, we're gonna be weak as fuck.
We're gonna get
we'll get killed. We may get killed.
Yeah.
We may get killed, but we like physically we will be the same people, and we'll be interacting, and we'll be dealing with whatever the information is going on at that time. And then after a year or two, we're going to be like, just acclimatized to what's going on in that period, right? Like we basically respond to stimulus that is given to us.
Yeah.
And in this day and age of information, we're getting inundated with all this BS stimulus when we really just need to touch real food and real things and connect with real people.
Speaking of this, we're in an insulated box here. You guys got to start doing this outside.
Well, we're gonna cut a skyline.
Yeah. This is on YouTube and it's serious.
You know this green screen?
You
can just make it wherever you like to be.
We're just full of crap. We're hypocrites. But what we're gonna do from here is we're gonna go touch the ground when we get outside.
Well, if we did go back that far in time, not only would we'd be really old and we'd be really tall.
Yeah, and we'd be, I don't know, we'd be outrun, outmaneuvered, and hopefully no one chases us because they'd catch us quick.
Yeah,
They would,
sure.
but they were eating real food back then.
Exactly. And I think about that, like we're, one of the reasons that I think this is in the lexicon, we're having these conversations is because at least a certain amount of us are being called to it, right? Like we're being something is like, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
This. And I think back, like my parents were, I kind of categorize them as sort of back to the landers. They wouldn't say that about themselves, but they were kind of later back to the landers. And you kind of look at the hippies in that zone, they're all kind of made fun of and whatnot. But if you think about it, they're the last generation that would have had grandparents that remembered agrarianism. Right?
Yes.
And that still happens elsewhere. And like, actually, it's one of the things about the bakery is that I have sort of a United Nations of staff. Everyone's from a different country, and I have a lot of people from Europe and small villages and stuff who work for me. And I've got an Albanian, a Bulgarian, a Czechs. I've got a Russian. I've got lots of French folks and all that.
The whole bread basket.
The whole bread basket, exactly.
You've got 'em all.
But I think one of the conversations that come up is that those of us who are connected to that and can have that memory, we're being called to go, hey, like rock the boat a little bit. And like, this isn't working. Like the answer isn't more tech.
Yeah, exactly. Or more disconnection from food or process. And I even think about that when it comes to like pea proteins and this manufactured food and this fake meat.
Oh,
and I'm
just
like,
thinking about that.
man, are you like the idea that sure, big corps have manipulated to the point that we got to get back to basics, but the most environmentally friendly thing is having a herd of cattle feed off the ground, right? Mm-hmm. And have that soil and absorb the carbon and and their manure fertilizes it. And it's like, why not more of that? Like,
because we're doing it wrong now, right? We're doing it
I know, but again, it goes back to supporting people that are doing it right.
Yes, absolutely.
And if we shut our minds off to what's right, all we've got left is what's wrong. And I think that is one thing that I think we're all doing, and the Bread and Butter Collective is trying to do, is bring it back to what's right, and try to, in the world of where we have to deal with the reality of having to make a profit and make money and support staff and all that, but doing it the right way and building that group of customers that support that, because there's enough community that supports it, especially here, and if we're all doing it, then we're gonna weed out what's wrong,
Yeah.
and have more what's right.
I get concerned about that myself because, well, no, I agree with you, but I get
Man, but
concerned
it was so
about
profound what I
taking
said,
the
and now
lead.
you're gonna
It is no,
disagree.
it's right
Just
though.
kidding.
You're
Yeah.
right, but there's the concern about you don't want to be the only one doing it because I don't think the population of Victoria is big enough, or I don't know, people care enough. But they don't care enough with their wallets necessarily, or they do, but they only stick to the places they know are doing it.
And you
I
can
don't
only
know,
go
it's
so
just-
far. You know, I
Yeah.
really agree with that. Like, I think you have also like a whole, you know, I feel like when I open my business and I think a lot of other, you know, I see things subsequently using maybe coming up through social media or you know, branding in a similar way, but they don't have those ethics either. And so
Yes.
people don't see the difference, and
Yeah.
they're not really, you know, like I remember, I don't want to actually name businesses, but you know, some businesses open up and they get in you would think that they're that way, but they're not at
Yeah.
all, right? They're using the most
Yeah.
packaged garbage, or
Yeah.
they're all shopping at the warehouse, or
Yeah.
you know, and like their organic coffee, but the milk isn't as commodity as possible, you know, and I think it's like if you're not someone who's only having that food, you don't taste it, right? Because you're not aware, and you think, oh, and I think within our bakery, like I don't toot the horn enough about what we do because I also feel like I could go so much further than what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing everything I think within the balance of the whole business and
equilibrium of
what I
it.
can pay people a living wage and the quality of food that I want to eat and feed my family and I feel comfortable feeding people, and I know I could go so much further, you know, but it's like we get this really beautiful butter that we're getting from Quebec right now. It's about $12 a kilo. There's a permit program for bakeries where we can get butter a bit of a discount through the government, and so we go through 75 kilos of butter a week. It's a big cost for us, and we recently switched to this French butter. So it's coming from, or this Quebec butter. It's coming from Quebec, which is I don't like. But if I buy it from natural pastures, they're paying for the butter fat that they're buying $12 a kilo, the same amount I'm paying for the finished butter.
Wow.
And so he's trying to figure out right now how to get his price point to a realm where I don't have to boost it. And then I even know with that's still, it's island butter, and we'll switch to it when they're at that capacity. But that's not even, you know, it's not organic. It's not this, you know, there's other things with it that still aren't even dialed up as much as they could be. And they're in the same balance as me, right? They're trying to do the best thing that they can, as well as keep their thing going. And then I got, you know, my friend who's doing the raw milk out in Machosen, her butter's $90 a kilo.
Wow.
And
Oh
that's
my God.
but that's what it really costs.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
someone to
yeah,
milk
exactly.
2 cows and make you
Yeah.
butter.
Yeah.
You need
That's the real
so
cost.
much freaking fat or butter or milk to make
Yeah.
a kilo of butter.
and time and effort.
Time and all those things. And so that's what the real cost is, right?
Yeah.
Is $90 a kilo. No one, you know, everyone gets that when it's $5 a pound, you know?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
It's $40 a pound if you get it from her. And that's really what it like.
And
good
that's real
grass-fed-
food.
And that's real food
Yeah.
from the land right here. And that's what it costs.
Yeah.
What does it taste like though?
I actually haven't gotten any yet. It's
Oh.
on my- it's on my program.
But you can imagine it would be
the
fantastic.
milk is
I
amazing.
bet.
I've been making yogurt from the milk. I mean, kefir from the milk. I got feta aging in the basement. I've got all these kind of little side projects that'll be for me
But-
and my home.
Getting back to the point of the profit of it, that to me is profit.
Yeah.
Like for you,
Yeah.
like the feeling you get when you're doing it and doing the right thing
Yeah.
and maintaining your integrity as best you can. Like obviously none of us can do 100% of what we want to do because of the limitations we have in this world. But you know, I feel like this type of stuff is sort of the you know, tip of the spear that's going through and keeping everybody behind us honest.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously if we can limit the dilution of it and also maybe not call out those competitors that are sort of fake, but amplifying what we're doing and why we're doing it so that people can kind of start to know the difference.
And what I wish there was more I don't, you know, we have people who I in other business who I've seen really, you know, competitors copy us or do little things like that, or they start bringing this in and they're using this product that we're using that we, you know, brought in, and I don't really mind that much at all. What I don't like is when no one's adding to the conversation.
Yes, exactly.
You know, like we started bringing in the Bianco di Napoli tomatoes because they're great, and I met this Chris Bianco fellow at one of these baking conferences, and so I started bringing them in by the pallet, and then through the mill. We started selling to a few people now. Like now they're with a big pizza blow up, they're like the tomato, and everyone's using it. And I'm like, great, we're no longer different with this anymore. But like, what's the next thing? Who's the person who's going to be like, hey, I got this fucking awesome sheep's cheese that they're making up island or this? Like, how do we push further and keep adding to that conversation as opposed to just
bringing more people in that are doing that?
Yeah,
right?
as opposed to just sort of like, okay, one person makes a step forward and then we all kind of copy and then it gets watered down. It's like, no, let's
challenge ourselves to do better.
Are we expecting just that most people will go and do something that someone else has started and they're a bunch of followers, and there's in amongst the people that we're leading, there's not a lot of people who are prepared to take the next step? Are they holding out in there? Are they waiting for you to do something else?
Yeah, I don't know if that's.
I think it's just a byproduct of human nature.
Yeah.
Like, people are going to see what's working, what is good, and they're going to be like, okay, well, I want to do this, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So they may
Shouldn't
not.
that
There's
just
leaders
encourage
and
them?
followers, I guess.
Yeah.
There isn't. I think we shouldn't discourage the following, because that's what actually will build the base of the people that are supporting it. I think what we need to do is create, and I think we're doing it where we are in Southern Vancouver Island. We've got a very unique opportunity. We're not there yet, but I think if we really start having these conversations, and just like what we're talking about today, and spread the word, then you build and will attract more people that are like that. The people that are coming up through school and they're wanting to get into this area will lead by example, and they'll see examples of how you can do it and make it. And making it is different for everybody. Like, people think, well, we've got 5 burger joints and an Italian restaurant and we're made of money and all this stuff. And it's like, we're not. We're very passionate. We do okay. We make a living and we're able to, fight and do all that stuff. But it's really about trying to maintain your integrity with what you're doing. Like, I would rather make no money at all, but be able to pay my staff and, keep the business going with my integrity intact than to cut my burger in half, or there's lots of ways I could actually make some really good money, but I would throw out everything that I've, respect about myself. And that's a danger. And that's why we are in the world we are, fighting the fight we are. So I think if we can show that we can make it, and also talk about profit being other than money.
Well, it's the expectation of the fact that if you're in business, you're making money. There's that expectation.
Oh, for sure.
You're rich. You own a restaurant.
Yeah. When people think, whether you're a baker or own a restaurant or a coffee shop, you're like, oh, you're making money. And it's like, man, we're just trading dollars mostly, right? And we try to fight to get that little win. But I think there's value in that. And I would hate to, it's not for everybody, right? Because, when your payroll comes and you're like looking at it, you're like, oh, Jesus, I've got to come into my pocket to cover the payroll, which happens. You really question what you're doing, but and then you may get a win here that gets taken away over here, right? And you're like, wow, I was so close to getting there, right? But I think the passion for me comes from what we're doing and the community we're building here, and I think that's
I think you're right on that one. And I think the one thing that is hard for people to distinguish is like the corporations that are there just to make a profit.
Yeah.
And the business, there's some even small businesses that are there just to make a profit, are very different than those of us who are trying to use local food and promote it through our things and pay good wages for folks
and support the whole economy.
Yeah, and it's really like, if I wanted to make money, anyone would. It wouldn't be in food.
Yeah, I'd be doing something else.
There's not that you can't make money in food, but there's a lot easier ways of making money. And so when you have people come to you, be like, like the amount of people who are asking me for charitable donations, and I'm like, I am a charitable donation.
Exactly. We're running a charitable donation.
That's all I do.
Exactly. It's like, okay, and
they always come to us first too, which is interesting.
I guess because corporations used to do it, like Dairy Queen always had like the baseball league they sponsored.
Well, you've got that book of huge checks, right? That's why they're asking.
Yeah, I just have this big check that we stand out there, and there's a big check,
and
uncashable.
I wish there was more recognition of that, at least of that we're already doing that.
Yes,
and that's actually where the act of kind of connecting you to the landscape, and we're not raking in money hand over fist. And I think that this is the other kind of like big issue for us right now, is that the affordability in this town has gotten so out of control
that
no one can afford to work even a living wage job.
100%.
And it's
It's not a
especially-
housing crisis, actually. It's an affordability crisis.
Yes, we were just saying this yesterday in the bakery. We were talking about this. It's there's plenty of places to live. It's just everyone wants too much fucking money from them.
Yeah, exactly.
And when we have Christia Freeland here, touting about this whatever affordable housing, and it was like something like $2,000 a month for a studio, or this guy just reached out to me.
What world does she live in?
Exactly. It's like, no, we need a $750 a month co-op housing for a 2 or 3 bedroom place for people, and hopefully on a piece of property that has some access to green space. That's what we need. We need co-op housing everywhere now.
And then people can afford to eat good food, which will make them happier and
maybe
healthier.
they can have a garden in their public
and they can afford to make food for each other, and they can start little businesses based on it, and it all just helps. But we don't. If everyone's living in a fucking condo disconnected from the earth, and they're paying an insane amount of money for it, then they're not going to fucking. They want. Okay, well, I've paid for this now. Now you serve me. And it's like, I grew up. I know we're in the hospitality industry, and I do really love service of people. But I also grew up working. We did a lot of construction jobs for some really wealthy people. My dad did some really nice concrete work, and we were discussing this yesterday actually, because Derek, who works at the bakery, the chef, has served some of the same people on houses that I worked on, these wealthy folks, and so he's catered for them back in the day when I was there, pouring their driveway or whatnot with my dad. And I remember as a kid, like 16 years old, out in the pouring rain, fucking raking concrete, and watching this the Bodines, the sun-kissed oranges guys, sitting there in a smoking jacket, not even looking at us. And I was like, I don't want to be this fucking guy's slave, and I don't want to do that for anyone, but I want to serve my community and be kind to people. And I think that's the issue. It's like, you can't, even for $25-$30 an hour, not many people are going to wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and get up and make other people bread.
Exactly.
It's really, unless they actually have like this weird impulse within themselves that they have to do it for some reason.
It's a service.
It's a service.
You are providing a service, for sure.
And the people who get up and make the food at your restaurant and whatnot, they're not, yes, they're getting paid for it, but they're not doing it and even as the person running it, you're not doing it hand over fist. You're not getting paid what a government worker is getting paid.
No, that's right.
Yeah, you could really put an argument that our work is as valuable, you might say.
It's more valuable.
Even say more valuable.
It's more valuable for the community as a whole. Like, that's where community
and
lies.
you see that with the people who work for you. I don't know how much you guys see this, but even the people you work for are more recognized within the community than like I got this one fellow who works for me, and his wife is the main breadwinner in the household, and she has some a good university job. There's nothing wrong with her work, but she's studying a very specific thing in a very specific place, and no one really knows anything about it. It doesn't affect anyone other than her and her work.
That's our community building.
And she makes the most money in the family, and then I'm paying him as best as we can in the business, and everyone knows him because he's at the bakery, and he's walking. People see him walking to work and then walking home.
He's a celebrity.
And people know that, right? But we don't reward that.
Yeah, exactly.
In the same way as the university or the government work, where, and I'm so I'm so sick of, there's some lovely customers, and we all have lovely customers who work for the government, and lots of people. But like, I'm so sick of these stories of people saying like, oh yeah, I work for the government and I don't really do much, and I it's a kind of, I don't know what else I'll do, but because I get paid so well doing nothing, and I'm like. I've heard this so often lately. It's constant. People, I get $35 an hour doing social media for the fucking government.
Yeah,
Are you kidding me?
I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I really don't want to hear
It
that.
fucks the whole labor market.
Yeah.
And
it comes back to the affordability crisis too, and a lot of this stuff, is I don't want to say it's unsolvable, but it goes back 20, 30 years of just poor decision making. And now we're trying to get ourselves out of it by making kind of rash decisions. And I was very supportive of, blanket rezoning, because zoning is a bit of an issue. But had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a developer guy, and it's actually in his best interest that they just blanket zoned properties, because developers make money on rezoning.
and then we'll lose farmland.
And this is it. This is what ends up happening. And then the affordability, like if you've got a single family dwelling that's worth 1.5 in Victoria now. You subdivide it, and now you've got 4 dwellings worth 1.5. So now it's $6 million. The land has increased. Yeah. Now it's really unaffordable. Yeah. You maybe have more houses, but you don't have more affordable land, right?
And I think this is the thing is that we can't actually have developers. We can't
No.
be giving these things to developers.
Yeah.
We don't need any more.
Yeah.
They don't need any more help to build more houses. They've
No.
been building millions
Yeah.
of them, and they've been making them more and more money. And
Yeah.
developers are never the answer. And I'll probably
Yeah.
make some enemies saying that.
No,
But
no,
they're-
for sure.
But they,
Yeah.
they,
Yeah.
you know, despite a few, maybe
Yeah.
possible good ones within
Yeah.
there, most of them are there to fuck you.
Yeah.
I've made it a habit now, and I'm so happy to speak about it. Never to work
This
with
is
a
such a long
developer
podcast.
again.
This is the after hours dark side podcast. Okay?
Well, I,
first
I, I
hour
can
was
start-
very friendly.
Can we
and
say this in Check 6?
Yeah, sure.
yeah, they are employee owned. They're good.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
they're
We're
good.
not going to get gassed on the way
No,
out.
no,
No, but I won't work with any developers anymore. I won't. I've been
Yeah.
burned so many times.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking it's going to get better, and it gets worse, and
Yeah.
I just won't do it. I can't deal with
They
that.
did that to you at
sliminess.
Royal Bay, eh? Like you,
Oh my
Well,
god! I
but
just
the
passed
whole
the Tim
thing.
Hortons
Oh my
out there.
goodness! And they were like their whole because we were involved because we had a food trailer out there too, and we talked. Sam and I are both looking at maybe locations out there and all that stuff, and they literally out of what this is a prime example of. We're going to support local. We're going to have a local market. They've just done a complete disservice to the entire Royal Bay area.
Yeah.
And those people out there were sold a bill of goods that was shoddy because there was no local anything.
It's awful.
Yeah,
it's awful. out
completely
there.
awful.
we were sitting out there eating one of your burgers with my son. He's a big fan of Big
Yeah.
Wheel. And he looks around. He's like, I love this place. But, you know, he's got everything you need. You got the burgers, the ocean. They forgot one thing. And I was like, what? He's like, trees.
Yeah.
It's just like it was so. You know, he was like
Yes.
6 years old, and he was
Yeah.
like, burgers, ocean, trees. We need these
Yeah,
three things.
Yeah, exactly. But the green space thing is like, and it's so.
They're so greedy out there.
It's the greed is one thing. Like, so you can harp on the greed part of it for sure, but it's lack of imagination, lack of vision, lack of understanding where you actually are. The one thing that I'm so proud of living on the island is that people on the island love supporting people on the island.
Yeah.
And brands that come off island, you know, aren't received that well.
Yeah.
And I think good on you.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're going to support local. And I think that end of it, and when a developer comes on and markets the hell out of providing a local thing, and that's the exact opposite. They could barely even take my freaking phone call. Remember when we were dealing with all that stuff?
Oh,
And I'm like, what the heck? And the people, there's two sides to it because the people that actually were doing the development work of it were great.
Yeah.
They were very accommodating, all that kind of stuff. But when you talk to the actual leasing people, when you're getting into, okay, how can we do business here? And they're just like, no, we got a Tim Hortons over here for coffee. Oh, we got McDonald's over here for burgers. And I'm like, you are missing such a golden opportunity to actually build community.
Well, especially when they're lying. I mean, it'd be okay if they came
Well,
out
exactly,
and
saying
told the
this we're
truth
gonna
and
do,
said,
but they're lying.
They
"We
put you
wanna
guys
put-
there
we
to
wanna
garner the
put
attention of people.
Starbucks. We want
Well,
to
and
put a
people that were
McDonald's
living there were buying houses thinking, you know, I know obviously maybe it's not 100% of the decision-making process, but we got a Big Wheel Burger, we've got a Sequoia Coffee, we got these local people. That's what's going to be here. Because I've heard that from people that bought there and are living there and are like so disappointed that none of the vendors or none of the people that are servicing out there at Royal Bay are local.
Yeah, except
And
for
they just-
Cascadia, which is local, but they're huge as well.
Yeah.
Of course,
And-
they're a big island brand,
They could throw
so
other things around.
sure, that one,
But
and
that's-
it's liquor, which is like, okay, so we're gonna poison people with a local company. Great.
Yeah,
I think that,
Sorry for those people that drink.
No.
I mean, I drink too, but not anyway.
but there's a, you know, they had a beautiful opportunity there, and it was actually one of the developments that I occasionally supported because it wasn't cutting down farmland, it wasn't cutting down
Yeah.
trees, it wasn't
Yeah.
doing anything.
It was a
like, oh,
quarry.
Yeah.
it was a
The
quarry.
quarry,
You know, they already fucked
Yes.
it up. You were just
Yeah.
this is the perfect place to put a subdivision. It's destroyed land.
Yeah.
They already chewed up all the mammoths that they found
Yeah,
there. You know,
yeah,
and
exactly.
it's all gone. It's all dug
There's
down.
no soil.
Yeah,
like,
let's
perfect.
just do something, make it better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looked good for a bit, and then it's cookie cutter,
And it would be one thing if you didn't have local vendors that wanted to, or local, you know, operators that wanted to go in there. That's something different.
yeah.
But you did. You had a plethora of people that would have gone. Good
Yeah.
brands.
You know, it's the same. Actually, I don't mind the guy. I don't want to call. I actually find him nice to talk to for the most part. But it's the same realtor, right? Jeff Lauheed.
Oh yeah,
From Townline. That's who I had when
Yeah.
he was first starting younger. That's who I signed with at Townline.
Oh, that's so
before I
funny.
was like, no, I got to get out of here. And he's been talking to me about the one that they're doing at the Ryder Hedgedall Way.
Yeah.
Because I was curious about what was happening, and he was actually like, you should, you know, trying to of course, trying to sell me on it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe now that they have the corporates, they want some smaller stuff over here. But I also said, I was like, I don't think I could go.
Yeah.
I couldn't have my business on a street named after like a disgraced drug cyclist. You know, like, I was like, you got to change the name of that fucking street. That's bad news.
Yeah, what's lack of vision again, right? Oh my God, poor Jeff.
I can't believe they put a Tim Hortons in there as well. Like I was when I found out I wasn't going to get the other space, or when I saw that it wasn't looking good, I went to the other space and I was talking to the agents from back east, and I was working out actually a really good deal. Like it was like half the price per square foot, and it was like awesome. All of a sudden I got no more phone calls.
Yeah, exactly.
And then all of a sudden last week there was a Tim Hortons there. It's like, oh.
At least
Is that the space you were supposed to get?
Well,
In
that
that
was
area.
my alternative space that I was going to get. I was going to get the Starbucks spot, right?
Slime.
But it
balls.
was never meant to be. Never.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, we've been going an hour and a half. We better cut this short. We could talk forever, but I mean, there's so much more to discuss and talk about. But I think the spirit of this conversation deals with just shopping local, buying local, support farmers, right, and stay true to the mission of integrity.
Touch the ground, look at the sun.
Yeah, and get some sun, get some fresh air.
Apparently, it's really nice on your perineum too.
Yeah.
Get out there, get your balls to the sun. Man. It's real,
All right,
real
tomorrow,
grounding.
7 a.m., Oak Bay Marina.
Keeps it real sterile.
Yeah, you may see way more than you need, but I'll be down there dipping. Thanks, Byron. That was amazing. Yeah, amazing. We're going to have you on again.
Okay.
And for those listeners, get out and support Fry's Bakery on Craigflower Road, just off Skinner.
Yep. It changes there, so you got to be careful. Next to the Spiral Cafe.
In Vic West, over the bridge.
Yeah, it was great seeing you. It brought back lots of memories about food stuff too, because you were the first person that ever taught me about mid-chosen wheat. First time I'd heard that we were growing wheat there, and that you could use.
Incredible.
Well, I remember I got my chickens from your parents, so I get my eggs from them.
You used to be roasting on the corner of Happy Valley and Souk there.
And
I used to stop in the little crack house.
Yeah,
I used to stop in there and chat with you about just things. So it was really helpful for me because I was just kind of getting my head in opening business and having someone a little bit further with the encouragement. So
you were bringing me some of your first loaves of bread, I think.
It was a good time.
So many good
So much
memories.
history. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Rich.
Awesome.
I even broke my leg at your parents' place.
Did you?
I did skiing. Not skiing, falling.
Oh no, Washington. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
I smashed it up.
The fries are bad news,
Yeah, I'm staying away.
Trouble.
It's a good thing we're in a confined little area here.
We'll see.
It was great having you. Thanks for filling in and doing us a solid.
Yeah,
really
it was
great
awesome.
conversation.
Happened on a day I had, wasn't doing too much.
No, that was
meant to be.
an awesome surprise.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Byron. Sam,
Kaylin,
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Another
it was a
good
great
show.
day.
This is one of my favorite shows, honestly.
Fair enough. Me too.
Yeah.
Enjoy
Sorry
the
to all
rest
the
of
other
the
past
sunshine.
guests.
Oh, they're all great.
Yeah, they're all great.
You have a great rest of your day. Enjoy some sunshine and be real nice, everybody.
Be kind. Cheers.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, Bunny's Kitchen, Buzz Coffee House, Eagle-Ite, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Eva Schnitzel House, Farmsgate Foods and Catering, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Nikkei Ramen Ya, Jenny Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Keating Pizza, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, The Nimble Bar Company, Ruth and Dean, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, Spoon's Diner, Truffles-inspired catering, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.